So I guess first, by way of introduction, I probably have the least direct connection to air travel, but I work at IDEO across industries and have worked with TSA and with different airlines. During the introduction to who IDEO is, it was mentioned that we're a marketing firm, and actually we're a design and innovation firm. And I worked in advertising before coming to IDEO, and really found my way to IDEO to get sort of closer to the problem. In advertising, you're talking around the sort of the root of it, and at IDEO we're really able to get to the root of it. And with TSA, there was a lot of root to get into. This cartoon reminds me of what Andy was talking about earlier, and sort of the role of humor in all of this. And I think we've been talking a lot about complaints in regards to customers, but at IDEO we're really designing systems and thinking about all the levers you have to pull to create a new experience, and a big lever is the people delivering the service or whatever that is. And so this, things like this and sort of the commentary around TSA as an agency and their role in affecting all of our experience traveling was undermining the pride that they all had, which was really worsening the problem. And so I would say that one of the biggest things that we were doing working with them was restoring pride in the service that they're delivering to all of us as Americans. That was probably the hardest part, was going from a place of a group of people just doing what they were told to do, sort of acting completely based on their standard operating procedure of what they had to do based on this binder, to getting them back in touch with sort of their mission. They're a really mission-driven organization, and their intuition and their ability to think critically and assess someone's intent to do harm, and just thinking about sort of the role of complaints as coming from all the different stakeholders, and our ability to design for all of them and not just the customer, because it's all got to work together. And if you fix everything for the customer and it's just making the lives of the people delivering the service harder, something I've heard about Virgin, who we didn't actually design the Virgin Airlines experience, but imagine many of you have flown Virgin, and rather than have your food come to you when they want to bring it to you, you can choose when your food comes to you. But that makes, for the flight attendants, makes their lives really, really hard. They're running around all the time, and they have no predictability of their time during that flight. So it's a great example of paying attention to the customer side of the complaint, but really no awareness of the people delivering that service. And I think when it really works and you're able to solve the problem is when you're sort of creating sort of the system that enables all of those pieces to come together.
Ashley, can I ask a question?
Please.
I just want to say something to the audience that we've worked together on a project that actually had done in Baltimore International for the TSA, and we had images, but we weren't allowed to show them.
Yeah.
So, can you say anything about that project? How it was to work with them? You know, how do you warm and make fuzzy the TSA experience? Most of our experiences with them are so negative.
Yeah. Well, first of all, our brief was not to make it a warm and fuzzy experience. Our brief was to take an agency that was spun up really quickly after a national tragedy from a reactive stance to a proactive stance. And the reason that the customer experience came into that strategically was that the analogy that we'll use is thinking about an ocean and your ability to see a shark. So if the ocean's really choppy, you're not going to see the shark fin going through it. If the ocean's really calm, you can see the shark fin. So if you think about that in the case of a security checkpoint and TSOs, transportation security officers, their ability to spot threat, if everyone is frenetic, the images that Alastair showed, that chaos, you're not going to see the shark fin moving through that. But if you can create a calm environment, then it enables the TSOs to do what they hopefully feel they were hired to do in that mission-oriented way and spot that. And so a lot of the work that we did for the space was about, which has not been rolled out except for a pilot at Baltimore Washington International, so I'm sad to say none of you have experienced it, but was about lighting and sound and things that were really about calming the environment and creating connections, doing things to sort of humanize the officers so people interacted with them and they interacted with passengers in a much more civil way, and then hopefully ultimately that improves security. But the focus for them was could never be just about a better customer experience first.
Did it work?
So the thing that has scaled, I mean, what's interesting and something Alastair and I talked about is TSA's success is the absence of something. So it's hard to stay in touch with any threat when, or the role, why they exist when you're really looking for the absence of something. But the one thing that did scale is a training that we developed. The man, Kip Hawley, who was responsible for directing TSA at the time, was really passionate about moving from a huge binder of standard operating procedures to sort of getting TSOs back in touch with intuition and critical thinking and decision making. And so the training that we developed around that is the one thing that rolled out to all 50,000 TSOs. And the cartoon that I showed, and going back to the idea of pride, like what I'm most proud of that work is the pride that we restored in this organization, and the things that came out of that, like just anecdotally, is groups of TSOs like knitting quilts together that like had mantras that they'd made up that were born out of their experience, and that passion that was restored, which hopefully is better for all of us because they have a commitment to something that we all depend on that wasn't really there for a while. Yeah. Yeah.
Alastair,
Yeah.
could I say something? Because I live the TSA every day because when I go down the concourses, we don't get any special dispensation, and so I go through the checkpoints a million times a day, or it feels like that.
Yeah.
And, everybody loves to hate airports and everybody loves to hate the TSA. But I can honestly say, because I see what they confiscate every single day, and that's never really talked about. But if you knew and if you really saw what they get, and I don't mean bottles of liquids, or all of that kind of stuff, but weapons, they get tons of weapons. In Miami, they didn't tell me not to talk, so I can talk. I would have talked anyway, to tell you the truth. But it's the truth. And there are guns and grenades and knives, long knives, and nunchucks and things we've never seen before. And in many cases, these are ordinary people carrying, I forgot I've got an M80, or I forgot. How does that happen, really?
Yeah.
But in all seriousness, yes, I'm sure they could be better. We could all do better. But they're doing their job. And I think that's important to say because it's so easy to criticize them. And
I've noticed it.
yeah,
They
I think
talk to
so.
people now, everything.
They try.
Make eye contact.
Yeah.
That's. I hope that's from your retraining program.
I
That's
hope so
great
too.
if
It's
that's-
hard to draw the. I
Yeah.
also think things like pre-check and
Right.
someone used the 4E Gabe did earlier of education, encouragement, et cetera. And I think we're more educated now. Some people are still bringing M80s, but most people know the basics of what is okay now. And so I think, we've just moved to a new chapter, hopefully, of how we all engage. And it varies. JFK, I tend to get more angry security officers, and I really chat with them because I worked for days as one of the things we do is about empathy, which I encourage you all to do if you can, in whatever place that you have a lot of complaints, is to put yourself like literally in their shoes. I worked as a transportation security officer at SFO to really understand where that was coming from. And when I was working with JetBlue, worked as a flight attendant, but like really understanding that and not just looking at it from the outside and thinking you understand the problem.
Do you want to talk a bit about we only have 2 slides.
Sure. Yeah.
Your program for JetBlue, the
Yeah.
egalitarian airline.
Yeah, well, so JetBlue came to us, and I'm sure you all know most airlines have a tiered sort of loyalty program, and JetBlue kind of knew that wasn't the right way for them to go. Bringing humanity back to air travel is sort of their reason for being, and when they came to us, if we can go back to the previous slide, that would be great. When they came to us, it was, so how do we sort of play in that space of having a premium experience and attracting sort of the business traveler and the frequent traveler who wants something, but we're not going to have gold, silver, and platinum, because that's, what does that look like for us? And we learned that, and what really made sense for them. I mean, I think there's a million ideas in terms of what you can create in this space, but what made sense for JetBlue and what their customers really hold dear is that they are a very egalitarian airline. And so since that's sort of their unique space to play in, we took some of the complaints that we saw across the board with things that we all experience still, but long security lines, don't know what to do with your luggage, the food isn't good, want better entertainment, and created sort of a system of needs-based upgrades. It's now called Even More, if any of you have experienced it, and all of these haven't rolled out. I think Fastlane has rolled out, but Even More is just you're on the way to the airport, you can last minute, based on your needs, you're late or you're expecting a long line for a more nominal fee and not based on your status or legacy with JetBlue, opt in for that upgrade.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you, Ashlea. Thank you. Kevin, do you want to stand up here, or do you want to just stay there?
I think I'll just stay here because I
Okay.
just have a few slides I can cover
Yeah.
pretty quickly.
Okay.
Thank you to the organizers for inviting me and American Airlines to be a part of this panel. Airlines, like airports, get our fair share of complaints, and I'm sure many of you fly frequently and have probably given us complaints. And I don't know if we're the only industry that complaints are as visible as they are. I mean, every month our complaint ratios make newspapers and media outlets, and we get lots of great feedback, opinions, and what I'm going to share today is really our solution from what we've heard from customers and in designing our airport of the future, our next generation airport. American Airlines has spent over 2 years kind of analyzing customer data, looking at industry trends, technologies that are existing, and really incorporating all of that to design an airport experience that keeps our customers at ease, relaxed, feeling in control and connected. And the airport experience can be very frustrating, and I think anxiety levels get high. And so our goal with this project, with the Next Generation Airport, is really to kind of make the airport experience seamless, enjoyable, and kind of a non-event, essentially. And so we launched the first prototype in Dallas-Fort Worth in Terminal A. I don't know if anybody's actually been to this terminal. It's the low section of Terminal A. This is a rendering, but it's spot on what it actually looks like. One of the things we're the most proud of is there's not a single stanchion or queue in this space. Alastair's, I think, second slide showed an aerial of a ticket counter, and I think that's everyone's fear is they walk into the ticket counter and see 100 people queued up like they're getting on a ride at Disney World or something, and it shouldn't be that way. There's technology, there's a lot of people come prepared with a mobile boarding pass, so this is what the next generation airport will look like for American. We're just on the very first step of this. We've actually launched a similar look to this in Miami-Dade. If you go into the American Airlines terminal on the far left, we've deployed this same concept and have been getting great feedback. It's really designed for an intuitive flow forward. We do put up signage, but I think we realized a lot of customers don't read signs. And so we wanted to design something that was intuitive, that you walked in and you knew exactly what to do. And so this space, the first thing you will see are kiosks. And this technology, I think a lot of customers are already self-service. They don't necessarily need to go stand in a line to see a person to check in on their flights anymore. So this kiosk provides your boarding pass and your bag tag. Self-tag technology is something that's a little bit new on the American side, but a lot of the other European and Asian carriers have been doing this, where you actually get your bag tag and tag it yourself at the kiosk. So then the only interaction you have is with an agent in front of the bag belt, which is about a 20-second interaction to drop off your bag. So it really is a seamless, you flow through, you flow forward. We really wanted it to be, like I said, intuitive and not backtracking. So the ticket counter concept has been working really well, and customers have noted the kind of ease and the relaxation. We also partnered with Future Brand, which is a firm out of New York, to kind of get the color scheme and kind of really push forward the calming influence with some of the precision cloud
You
colors.
told me about the cloud, what was it called, the cloud?
We call it the precision cloud.
Precision cloud.
And it was designed really with the idea of relaxing customers and giving you that sense of peace. And it's heavily infused in this next generation airport. So then turning to the, actually let's go back to the gates. Really at the gate, our focus was on the congestion. I think as all of us travel, we know during boarding, it's about 150. Everyone gets up and kind of rushes the gate, and there's that congestion and that anxiety with the boarding process. So we really wanted to try to spread out customers and give them relevant information from their seat, so they didn't feel the urge to jump up and go stand by the agent or go ask the agent questions or kind of congregate. So we developed some software that pushes the information that customers most frequently ask for during the boarding process, where I'm on the standby list, where I'm on the upgrade list, and any information on their flight, if it's delayed, the reasons. So it is just, the other focus is keeping the customer connected. And I don't know if you can see it very well. The bottom right corner is a work table. And that's the item that we've been getting the most positive feedback. Of all the things we did, it was putting in these work tables, which have 8 power outlets. I think all of us carry devices and laptops, and this has been overwhelmingly popular to allow folks places to work or just places to plug in and power up before they get on board the aircraft. We also, though, this was our most popular item, but it also generated some complaints that that alone was not sufficient power. So we launched the work table, loved it, got great feedback, but that alone wasn't sufficient to meet the demands of the customer. So we've since gone back in and put power underneath the seats in the gate area. So that's some of the concepts at the gate. This is a little bit more on the
Is
ticket counter.
that operative yet, where you self-tag your bag?
Yes, absolutely. American has self-tag at the majority of our large airports now. Miami as well. We've had self-tag there for just a few months. One of the things we were excited about these kiosks here, they're single position kiosks, and we got a lot of great feedback from our Miami customers that they liked how spaced out they were. Because historically, kiosks for most airlines have been kind of in a row, back to back. So you don't have a lot of elbow space, and people appreciated. We spaced them for the flow. We wanted everyone to move forward, but the benefit we got out of it secondarily was that customers liked not having somebody over their shoulder or right next to them, so they had a little more peace and calm while they went through their check-in process.
You told me about going on a trip your staff going on a trip to Australia to check out the Qantas system.
Yeah,
Because it was so advanced, or?
Yeah, so a lot of the non-U.S. airlines have done a lot of great things in kind of technology and ease for customers and self-service. So we went to Australia because Qantas had not only self-tag, but a product called self-bag drop. And so if you flew domestically within Australia, you would not have to interact with a person at all. You could go to the kiosk and then go to the self-bag drop and drop off your bag. And it was very efficient, and there were, even during their peak seasons, Qantas did not have lines in their ticket counter because of all, just the self-serve functionality that they successfully deployed.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
And now, last but certainly not least, Nancy, who's going to look at the positive, brighter side. Do you want to stand up or
Except
just
that,
sit here?
I'll
Yeah,
stay here,
okay.
except that while everyone has been speaking, I've been thinking about the meaning of airports, which really play a significant role in the lives everyone has today, and are places where, fantasy and imagination and the excitement of travel encounter some harsh realities of today. Looking at the pictures you showed, Alastair, I noticed even in the 1970s, with the early security machines, did you catch how the people looked who were going through them in this Times picture? I mean, they were really well turned out. Travel has become democratized. It's become kind of less of a luxury experience. It used to be much more rare. And now you're dealing with crowds of people. That it's lost some of the magic. It's not something you have to dress up for necessarily, and even some of the things that look good, like Charles de Gaulle Airport when it opened, I think in the 1970s, in that high-tech moment, I think it looks pretty bad. You know, it hasn't aged well, where some of the classic modern airports really have. What's going on today that's interesting, I'm really excited to see how American terminals work out, and you know, I hope that they are preserved and look great, because I do notice how use wears down even the nicest things because of this problem of passenger load in airports in the United States in particular, it seems. But some efforts are being made that I think are really interesting. Can we do slides now? I don't know. Some of these are Alastair's slides, so he's going to have to help me.
That's your
Okay, so this is an airport I know, the airport in Amsterdam, and I think that this is what they call their Central Park. They have put in this park area. What you don't see is somewhere in there, there's a 150-year-old tree. They use they call it mixed reality, which is they have some real plants, and then they have projected images of gardens like Central Park, of public parks and public spaces, and they create this kind of wonder world. Schiphol is a really interesting airport. There's seating areas by Marcel Wanders. Until recently, there was the Rijksmuseum from Amsterdam. It's a pretty exciting place. Okay.
That's China.
China. All right.
Massage chair.
Yeah,
Wow.
there are, I mean, I've not encountered these yet. Well, there is a thing with China in Barca Lounge type chairs. I've had that experience but that's pretty good. But there is something going on with chairs in certain airports. I think Frankfurt has a special chair. There's silent chairs, massage chairs, relaxation chairs. There are sleeping pods. Pardon? Oh.
With
Opium. In China, maybe. Okay.
This is Helsinki.
Helsinki. That is weird. Okay. You better help me out.
Well, this is the experimental relaxation area in Helsinki. It opened about a year ago, and it's got the chairs you kind of they're like Loom chairs, and they're sleeping cubes, and they're just sort of hangout areas. Very Finnish and of the moment.
I hear this is a fabulous
Yeah,
airport, very much in the style of Finnish design, very modern and light.
And that is Tom Dixon's massage area in Melbourne for Qantas.
Okay, so that's the Qantas Lounge, where they have the fabulous green wall that is by Patrick Blanc, who did your great new museum, the Perez, here. And this whole thing, I mean, of green in airports is really, really significant now. Green walls coming up all over. In one case, now I forget, it may be Edmonton in Canada, they have 8,000 plants in a green wall. Another one has 3,000 plants growing in these green walls. And they've come out of the lounges, they're in the airport. One of the most interesting examples of plants in airports is in Chicago. Believe it or not, in O'Hare, they have aeroponic gardens where they grow vegetables that are used by the food vendors in the airport.
Oh, that's great.
Pretty amazing. Yeah. One of the most interesting airports for nature is Changi in Singapore, where they have what they call a nature trail from terminal to terminal. They have an enchanted garden. They have a butterfly garden where I've actually been in there. Butterflies are supposed to relax you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Oh,
there it
you've
is.
got it.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how many of you have experienced a butterfly garden. It's a little unnerving, actually. I know probably it relaxes most people, but it didn't quite
Makes
work
you
for
nervous.
me. And they have, just to continue, they have a cactus garden. I think they have 7 different special gardens throughout the airport.
This is Air France's new VIP lounge in Paris. Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's still based on natural, even though it's artificial, it's based on kind of the idea of a
Bringing
forest.
in
Yeah,
nature,
yeah.
nature in. Of course, the real plants have an environmental purpose in these and are part of this green movement in airports and in life, where they are trying to make the airports more human, but also control energy use, and there are various lighting plans and to reduce the light and use as much solar generated lighting as possible throughout airports. Is this?
This is yours.
Oh, okay. This is JFK.
Okay.
And there's a company called OTG that has become a leader in terminal redesign. And they put in, much like what you showed, these are desks you can sit at where you can recharge or whatever. There are iPads on the desk. You can order food in some instances from them. I mean, it's, and this company has been working. They did the JetBlue terminal. They're doing a new Delta terminal at JFK. Okay, Marcus Samuelson. Have you been up to his place in Uptown in New York? He's fabulous. And this is his restaurant called Uptown Grill. He has Red Rooster in New York that serves kind of soul food. And this is at JFK in Terminal 5, the new terminal. He has a restaurant, I hear, is great. It's for Marcus in the menu, another picture of it. This effort to bring better chefs into restaurants is really exciting, and it's countrywide. It began, actually, this same company, OTG, that did this terminal brought in Balthazar to JetBlue and brought in Del Posto years ago. And they're working, I know now major chefs like Suzanne Goyne from, I forget the name of a restaurant in LA, but it's a very good one, is at the new Tom Bradley terminal at LAX. There are a lot of, one of the top chef winners has a restaurant.
That's San Francisco.
Accord in San Francisco, which is credited, I don't know, it's not the best example of sophisticated dining, but it is.
But they have a lot of organic food.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty
And
special on that terminal.
And this is also, San Francisco is a fabulous airport. For a very long time, they have had art installations from local museums in the airport. This is one of them. They have a number of others. Oh, and here we are back at Michelle's wonderful magic in Miami, your airport. And that actually, the first time I experienced that, one of your floors, I thought I was alighting into this other world that my plane really hadn't put in Miami. I was in some better aquatic world.
I'm taking that personally.
And then reality hit. So I think this
That's
is
it.
this is
Doha.
yours.
That's
What
my
is
favorite.
that?
No, that's Doha, the quiet room at Doha,
Oh.
where they give you the blankets and the reclining chairs.
Okay.
I think at this point we should invite Kurt Anderson into the discussion. And thank you all very much, all the panelists, for enlightening us. And Kurt, you want to stand there?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Good here. It is interesting how, and especially when Todd was showing us our childhoods, our youth's memories of the 1960s and how glamorous air travel still was. I mean, I was thinking before and during the big changes beyond just, oh, things aren't what they used to be, that drives so much of this, and drives the sense that, oh, it's messed up. I mean, there was, for starters, we fly so much more, unbelievably more. I looked up the statistics. I mean, compared to 1980, the United States, we log 3 times as many passenger miles as we did 30, that's when I was an adult. 6 times as many as in 1970. So there's just, these airports, like say the terrible ones in New York City, have just had to kind of do this Rube Goldberg attempt to keep up with this enormous increase in passengers. The other thing, is when sort of hyper competition and the market rules all sort of really got traction as a thing in the American economy in the 1980s. That's part of it, because it seems to me, and please disagree if this is to be disagreed with, but that at this, that there is so much less leg room in economy that now premium economy and business class to me are just protection money you pay to fly the way you should and used to. Sorry about that, gods of airlines. And finally, I wonder how much of the discomfort, and obviously this connects to TSA, is, the result of 9/11, the result of the anti-terrorist security systems through which now we are obliged to go. So, they're all, security systems can be done better. People like JetBlue are trying to do it differently. But there is still these basic facts of security and this enormous passenger increase that people are scrambling or not scrambling to deal with. One of the airports that I expected to see, Alastair, in your thing, was this amazing, the most blissful airport experience I've had in the last decade is the Terminal 3, Norman Foster's Terminal 3 in Beijing, which is like, wow, this is how I remember in my dreams airports were. So one of my thoughts is we're doing it less well and catching up less well in the United States than the rest of the world is. Is that fair? Are we behind as Americans?
We are behind. One of the basic facts, and it's really problematic, that makes it really huge for everything else you got to do, is North America has not built
A new airport from the ground up since Denver, 1995. Everybody else, like in China, Middle East. From the ground up? Well, I'm out of date.
Okay.
Well, no, with the entire airport, with the runways and everything. Where is it? Well, that's what I'm saying. So it's not from the ground up. The runways are not new, so therefore it's not an entirely new airport. I know, but it's not a new. I'm talking about making an airport actually from scratch, where there's never been an airport. So now they can build it for the Dreamliner, these enormous planes that are coming in. Everybody else has to retrofit because America had such early airport. So because it was so advanced, it early on, it built these facilities that then get surrounded by neighborhoods, and they can't expand anymore. You're in China, they have vast amounts of land, or the Middle East, something like that. So that's a basic inherent problem.
Yeah.
You can't get around, and we just, it's all retrofit.
There are, and at a certain point, continual retrofitting without a holistic plan gives us Kennedy Airport,
Right.
2014. One of the things, though, that I'm struck by on my way here is the TSA pre-thing. I'm sorry, that improved my airport experience more than anything in the last 10, 20 years. Being able to go quickly through that, not take off my shoes, not feel panicked about getting my shoes back on and my belt back on. So is that, maybe Ashlea, you can speak to this. Are we 12 years into TSA finally learning like, oh yeah, we can make this better in a real way?
It seems that way. I think, pre-check is still relatively new, but I think people who have experienced it have to say what you have to say.
I sort of don't want to talk about it because then it will get full and get bad.
Right. Yeah. I think that, it is a product of, like I said, an agency who was on their heels for a long time, kind of getting the systems in place and to do things like that. So I hope that trend continues.
How much
And
is it
Kurt,
now?
it's 85.
85?
Yeah.
And 25, as of November, 25% of all American travelers are qualified for it. And now there are terminals at the enrollment centers at 100 airports, so it could get very full.
Yes.
I think if you don't know, and many of you probably do, the international arrivals equivalent, if you will, is called
Global entry.
global entry. I don't know what's wrong with me. The whole video thing has made me verklempt. But global entry, and that is also a lifesaver.
Yeah.
And it's not very expensive either. I think it's $100 or $125 or something. Yeah, and that is definitely in the whole Miami thing that I talked about. But it's not just Miami. That I feel compelled to say that while we're having a very difficult time here because of the shortage of staff, actually we're behind Kennedy in terms of numbers. So this is a world, or a U.S., not worldwide, but a U.S. post 9/11 sequestration, all of this quagmire. So these programs are definitely worth it. And
You don't think there's a little bit of elitism? I mean, you have to not just pay for everything. You have to pay to put your extra bag in. You have to pay for a meal, which you used to get automatically. And if you've got a bit more money, you can get the early pass. It seems that it would be nice if it could be for everybody who travels and not just sort of
it's just
the elite.
not the real world and the economy of the airlines. And, you know, it's, you know, if you think about what happened at 9/11 and what the horrific, I mean, not, you know, everything was terrible, but the effect it had on the carriers and airports and this new agency that got stood up overnight with a charge, and frankly, an impossible charge. And, you know, it put the industry on our heels, on its heels. So there's tremendous catch-up. Airports like MIA, airports that have huge capital programs. You know, we have millions of dollars of debt from trying, what you're talking about, trying to keep up with the A380 and the, you know, Dreamliner that's coming to MIA in August, and on it goes. So things are moving so fast, Kurt, and that it's a lot of retrofitting, and I love the idea of building from scratch. We wish we could all be doing that. It's just unfortunately not available.
I realized recently, I mean, as people talk about inequality and envy of the rich and demonizing the 1% and all that, the only thing I envy rich people is the ability to have private aviation. That is the only thing I wish I could have, is a jet to call my own. But with that, I would love to open it up to questions or comments, questions, I hope, from the audience. Yes, sir. Yeah. You've got a mic coming to you.
We just completed a whole brand new ground-up airport for Bogota. And simultaneously, we're working on a new terminal for Fort Lauderdale. The one in Bogota we designed, it's already been constructed, and it's 33 gates. It's 21 million passengers a year, and we did it in 4 years. Fort Lauderdale, we've been working for 9 years. We're just coming out of the ground for half of one concourse because we split the project into two. So my question is, why in this country does it seem so difficult to privatize and franchise the experience so that there's somebody who actually has a lot of money in the game versus having so many different agencies and airlines having their say? By the time, I know Dickie knows this, we've done a little work at Miami. By the time you get a project through, all the different airlines, all the different segments of the airlines, all of the different stakeholders, the concessionaires, the millions of people you have to talk to, your idea is already out of date. So I think that I would like to hear about where you see the privatization possibility going, if anywhere.
Well, I think I would so agree with you. And over the years, I've seen so much. You know, it's the government. There's so much bureaucracy, and the government doesn't want to let go, you know, of controlling the systems. And it overpowers even the private sector that would push for a privately run airports. You know, because at the end of the day, if there were, God forbid, some kind of national or international event, the government takes over and they take over the airports. It's an international asset or a national asset. So that's, I think, Bernard, at the end of the day, what it's really all about. And then it gets into a greater quagmire of local governments and all of these programs that, you know, are built for good reasons, but tend to really complicate things. you know, at MIA, for example, we've got 87 airlines, 239 concessionaires. All of those people weigh in on sections of the terminal. The 239 concessionaires are, in many cases, involved in national franchises. And then those people get involved. You know this very, very well. So it's complicated. The work that Michelle does is complicated with, I can't speak for you, but they're agencies and art in public places, and on it goes. So, you know, my hat is always off to those of you who are really legends, and it's why I picked Michelle's work. You know, I have a poster in my office of the terminal when it opened 85 years ago. Well, there was no terminal. The airstrip, and the line is, in the beginning, everything was so simple. And, you know, people had ideas, and a month later, you had that thing. And it was beautiful and functional, and so it's super. So that's my complaint for the day that I'd like to register, because it is quite complicated.
It makes me think of the conversation about cities earlier.
Yeah,
Airports are like
exactly.
small cities.
A very note I wrote down.
Yeah,
Exactly right.
and they have the same issues and maybe require the same approach of starting small and piloting and all the things we talked about or listened to this morning.
You know, Dubai is developing a city around its new airport. And it's a great opportunity if you can start from scratch. One of the problems with LaGuardia, by the way, is there's no space. So even though there's every intention to redesign it and make it better, there's really limitations.
It was built in the 1930s as a WPA project.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, how could it not? It was the biggest airport in the world.
Yeah, I still.
We have time for
Yeah.
Another question?
Hi. It's not on,
Yeah, it is.
it's more of a symbol, like I've got the talking pillow. A little bit of a communist uprising in the back of the room, actually. We're curious, because you'd made the comment about the question in itself previous was phrased in the way of how do we better privatize, and then the answer was we need to better privatize. So one of the things we were curious about back here, and as experts you would probably be able to speak to this, but it seems to us a lot of the airports and airlines that function really well are not private. They're state-run.
Singapore, China, Helsinki.
And the
But
list
they're
goes
not
on.
United States run.
So, right. So the question then is the problem government or the U.S. government? Because to me, it seems like those are very different things. So again, going back to some of the themes that have been coming up in the festival regarding the role of individuals versus the role of governments, the Robert Moses type figure versus the kind of bottom-up, let opportunity come from below. This seems to me a bit of a problem, and I didn't want the answer to just kind of stop at the answer is privatization.
Who would like to answer that?
Not me.
Well, you can
No.
also, I mean, to me, the answer is, you know, is that there is no proven one answer. Because obviously, you can look at all kinds of state-run airlines from Alitalia to Air India that are disasters in every respect and have been or attempted to be privatized. Which isn't to say, oh, well then never have state-run airlines because you mentioned ones that work well. I think the answer is that there is no one answer, as you know, and that somewhere between that it is striking this practical, pragmatic balance between Robert Moses, you know, enlightened despotism, benign fascism, call it what you will, and some version of either economic or political democracy that allows for multiple airlines as well as state run. So I guess I'm of the belief that you know, that we can argue back and forth. Oh no, it should be state run. No, it should be privately run. There are terrible and fantastically successful examples of each, it seems to me.
It helps to have a dictator, you know, to get a big
Yes.
airport down there, for sure. Yeah.
I think we have time for one more question. Yes, ma'am, from Detroit.
I think as you get older, there is some allegiance to airports because they got much better with all people. But it's shameful for the airlines. It's shameful because how do you treat people with children and small children especially? You treat them like they're taking drugs through the airport when they have children. There's nowhere to get warm milk or milk in a warm place. If you come out with 2 babies, the airline stewardess will turn to the wall and act like you're carrying like something horrible at. I have more people with children This is the typical man on an airline. It really, it is, I've seen young mothers here, you have to everything. You have to everything because somebody has to change the rules how we should treat things.
This is true. Do you remember the sippy cup terrorists
Yes.
5 years ago? Yeah.
Yes, I mean, it's just, I can't believe it. I have one people with children all the time, and we all have to change. Because they get nervous. The TSA people take blankets away from babies that are sleeping. Everybody in the line gets nervous now. It does more harm than if there was a terrorist thing that was involved in doing that. And yes. Yeah, I mean, something.
What's the question? What's your question?
It's a complaint, Alastair, it's a complaint.
We agree. I think we all agree here that
Yeah.
we should be nicer to babies.
I just want to, before I handed this part of the day back to Kathy, it seems to me we have, as Ashley mentioned earlier, there are some common themes we've found in between, certainly perhaps how to run cities better and how to run airports better, which is, again, when Andreas was going on and on about the increasing thickness of overprescribed regulations in building cities. The giant binder that the TSA had trying to cover every eventuality, rather than, as in building cities and rebuilding cities and in making the people, the TSOs operate better, it's creating systems that devolve important amounts of decision making to being human, to making judgments on your own, or like the social housing in Chile, where, okay, you build half a house and then over time you build the rest of your house. It's that again, that balance, that Goldilocks balance between creating systems that allow for the necessary security, necessary infrastructure, necessary all of it, but then giving human beings the space to make decisions about whether to grab the blanket from the baby or and how to behave in a human fashion, rather than turning ourselves into some kind of dysfunctional computers that are supposed to be coded and operate according to highly coded algorithms. So I think it is, if there's a theme, it is trying to create systems in which responsibility for being human devolves to human beings within larger systems, and which, as it happens, is a good, not a bad segue to the discussion later tonight at the Perez Museum with truly these great thinkers and makers in the digital world that we'll be starting to talk about at 7. Thank you so much for being here and being such engaged listeners. Kathy Leff has more to tell you.
Good segue.
Matita Pereira. É madeira de vento. É um mistério profundo.
Hello. For those of you who are exhausted, we suggest you go and take a nap before our event this evening. If you have tickets for the event tonight, the doors open at 6:30, or at least we're starting registration. Please bring your tickets. It's going to be mobbed. It's also, there's a Miley Cyrus concert, we understand, at the American Airlines Arena. So please come early. There's suggested you could talk to Julie or Fatima about where you might park by the Omni and take the Metro Mover for free, or the People Mover. If you want to go for a walk on the beach, you saw Michelle O'Doner's stunning floor, A Walk on the Beach. If you want to go for a real walk on the beach with Michelle O'Doner, she'll be taking you on her own beautiful tour of Miami Beach for a little bit if you need some outside and fresh air. We also have tour guides from Miami, the Miami Design Preservation League. For those of you out of town and want to see a little bit of the Art Deco district, you could meet at the front door as well. If you need a massage, we have that for you, or yoga upstairs, and also our wonderful collections and exhibitions. So we look forward to spending and having a wonderful night tonight with Intelligence Squared and Kurt, Michael Chabon, Jaron Lanier, and Clive Thompson. And thank you all so much, our panelists, our moderators, Kurt, our ringmaster, and ombudsman here for our Complaints Festival. Thank you all, and we'll see you in a bit.